See the wonder-stricken child, hear the elders wise in song. Wouldn't you love to know? Wouldn't you love to know? Wouldn't you love to know? On my way on a long, long journey, and I don't know where the road ends. I'm on my way on a long, long journey. Surprises await me just round the bend. Take my hand and walk beside me. The road is long and brief the rest. Take my hand and walk beside me. The answer to this riddle is a quest. The riddle says finding leads to losing. Losing lets you find. Living leads to dying, but life leaves death behind. Losing leads to finding, that's all that I can say. No one will find life any other way. Take my hand and walk beside me. The road is long and brief the rest. Take my hand and walk beside me. The answer to this riddle is a quest. The riddle says finding leads to losing. Losing lets you find. Living leads to dying, but life leaves death behind. Losing leads to finding, that's all that I can say. No one will find life any other way. No one will find life any other way. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Loft Sessions. This is episode 15, I think, and I think it's been over a month or so since I did one of these, and so it's kind of nice to be back and singing to you. This is on a Thursday rather than a Friday, which is what we usually do it on, and it's on YouTube streaming rather than Facebook. So a couple of changes. The first one, though, is because today, the 11th, is exactly 1 year since my last concert. And my last concert, interestingly enough, last March 11th in the evening, was in Drumheller prison in Alberta. And if you followed my story at all, you know that that's where I learned to play guitar as a little boy. My father was the chaplain at Drumheller prison, and my mom and my sisters and I went in there every Sunday for church services. We'd go to the different socials and different events that happened in the chapel. It was our community. It was our church. It was the inmates that first sort of realized I had musical capacity, and they kind of took me under their wing and taught me to play guitar. And so that my last concert was there singing to inmates in Drumheller prison poetically is kind of lovely for me. And I have talked to friends over the last year who we all kind of got off the road this time last year, all within about a week. Everybody, all my musician friends, we all kind of said, "Oh my goodness, this pandemic thing is happening. It's real, and we got to go home." And I canceled 5 concerts following that last one that were out in Alberta, and headed home, and everybody else did as well. And all assuming we'd be home for a month or 2 and then back at it. And here we are a year later. And it's probably going to be another year at least before I'm back at concerts, I'm imagining. And we talk about how sad it would be if you had your last concert and didn't know, like, because none of us knew. But I keep thinking that if that was my last one, perfect. that would be awesome, and I'm sure I'll do more. But if that was the last one, it was a great place to start for a lot of good reasons, and it would be a great place to end. So I'm going to do for you a song called Drumheller Circle. And I've done it on the Loft session before, but it's appropriate right now because of exactly this. So Drumheller Circle is a song I wrote for the inmates in Drumheller Prison who taught me to play guitar when I was 8, 9, 10 years old. Every Saturday afternoon they would have jam sessions in the chapel, and I'd kind of go in and sit in the circle of these men, and that's where I learned to pick and grin. It's just such a fond, deep memory, and it's a profound memory in that I'm very, very aware that the work I've gone on to do since the thousands of concerts and the 21 albums I put out and stuff is started there. Started from those humble beginnings, and that tells us something about God, tells us something about the dignity of all human beings, no matter where we are in life. There's a lot to pull from there. Anyways, here's a song. It's a little instrumental ditty called Drumheller Circle. There you have it. That's Drumheller Circle. That's an old song. It came out on an album quite a long time ago. I'm going to do a newer song. Actually, this would be one of the more recent songs I've written. It came out on an album this last fall. A brand new album I put out called "Wouldn't You Love to Know." If you haven't got it, it's brilliant. You really should have it. Since nobody actually buys CDs anymore, I actually wrote a book to go with it, and there's a chapter for every song on the album, and I kind of reflect on that. We just got word. This just got a Juno nomination. So how exciting is that? You put a lot of work into these things, and it's not that awards make them any better, but it's nice to, when your peers say, we've noticed you're doing some decent work, and so that's a lovely thing. So I'll let you know in a couple weeks if we get a Juno on that. This is a You know what? I'm just going to stop the camera here. You're not going to go anywhere. I'm going to retune up, and we'll be right back. Okay, thanks for being patient. The miracle of modern technology, we can stop and do these things. Okay, so again, this is we are exactly at 1 year since my last concert. This time last year, I had no idea I'd be doing video concerts. I didn't know we'd have a video studio. I didn't know we'd be staying home for more than a year. I remember when we had to go home, we left Calgary, and Dave and I are on the flight home, and he's kind of busy doing the math in his head, and he's thinking, boy, if this lasts till September, I think we can make it. And didn't occur to us that we're going to be as long as we are, for sure. This morning, I was praying and trying to think about what I wanted to talk about today at this concert, what I wanted to share, because I kind of know that this is, in a sense, reflecting back in the last year. And I initially thought that what I would do was talk about all the things we've done. We started this online work and various different things we've done, and talk about some of the memories of the last year and some of the hardships. My mother getting COVID in a care home and not being able to go see her. And I was going to show you a video of me playing trumpet outside of her care home window at Christmas time, playing carols, because that was the only thing I thought that could be loud enough to get through. I was going to talk about all sorts of other things, but when I actually sat down and was quiet, what overwhelmed me was gratitude for all of you. What overwhelmed me is that there's no way we should have survived this at a business financial level. And pretty much the minute we got locked down, people started sending us money and encouragement notes and all kinds of helps and stuff. We have stayed okay. We're doing just fine. We need that help to keep coming, but it's a bit of a miracle, I think, what has happened, that we have actually been busier than ever, more productive than ever, reaching out to more people than I've ever been able to reach out to before, learning a whole new skill set that I never would have interrupted my life to learn. In many, many ways, it's been a gift year. Even I don't want to take away from anybody's sadness, including our own. But that's just not the whole story, right? So I'm super, super grateful. The image that came to mind this morning was Jesus, the feeding of the 5,000. You know, you got a few loaves and a few fishes, and the sharing starts, and it just keeps on going and keeps on going and keeps on going, and everybody's fed. And it's really encouraging us to have a worldview of a God of abundance, and a world of abundance where there's enough. And so I'm just very super, super grateful to you. I'm super grateful to my staff, my manager, Dave Zaglinski, for being able to just continue. So I'm going to do a song here that the lyric is a Malcolm Guite, from Malcolm Guite poem, and you're going to meet him in a minute, because I'm going to do a couple Lent songs yet that Malcolm initiated. And it's called, what's it called? It's called, thanks, Jay. This is called Because We Hunkered Down, and it just seemed like the appropriate thing. Now, before I start, just one word of warning. When I wrote this song, I wrote it at once too high and too low for my voice. And when I wrote it, I thought I can never record this song because it's too high and it's too low, so I can't move it up and I can't move it down. But I really did want to get it on the record. And so right around this time last year, I started vocal lessons with a guy in Winnipeg called Bruce Moore, who's now quite a dear friend because I see him 3 times a week. And the goal at that time was to expand my range enough that I could get this song on the album. And we did. And so if this is, that doesn't mean I can perform it well. So if this is unsavory or unflattering, there's a lovely version of it on my Juno-nominated album. Okay. These bleak and freezing seasons, maiming grace, when they are memory. In time to come, when we speak truth, they'll take their place, telling the story of our journey home. Through dark December and stark January, with all its disappointments and the dreary murk of February, when even breathing seems to be unwelcome work. But because through all of these we held together, because we shunned the impulse to let go, because we hunkered down through our dark weather, trusted to the soil beneath the snow, slowly, slowly turning a cold key, love will unlock our hearts and set us free. Slowly, slowly turning a cold key, love will unlock our hearts and set us free. Love will unlock our hearts and set us free. Love will unlock our hearts and set us free. Because we hunkered down. Because we hunkered down. Because we hunkered down. Okay, I want to do two more songs for you, this leading into Lent. And that last song, it's got a kind of a spring image, you know, the thawing and the turning of the cold key. Spring will unlock our hearts. This is what Lent means. Lent is that turning. It's the lengthening of days where the sun stays out longer, warms the frozen earth and penetrates the soil, draws up greening, new things, new life. That's the season we're in. I've written two songs with Malcolm Guite. Now, Malcolm is an English friend of mine. He's a poet, and I'm sure most of you watching this know who he is and love him as we all do. A great poet. Several years ago, we found ourselves both in California, down near Los Angeles, at the same time. We ended up doing a gig together. And then we had a couple days off, and rather than just kind of go our separate ways, I had phoned a friend and asked him from Los Angeles if he knew of any place that we could rent a cabin or something that Malcolm and I could go to and do some writing. And he thought he knew a place. And we got an address about an hour and a half out of Los Angeles up a mountainside. And we get to this place, and it turned out to be Dick Clark's old cabin. Yes, that Dick Clark, the guy from the New Year's Eve ball dropping, the guy from, what's the rock and roll show that he used to host? American Bandstand, that guy. And this was his cabin. I mean, he's passed away and someone else owned it, but we got to go into this place and it was fantastic. It was fun because of all the conversations that we knew had happened in that place. Everybody who was anybody had stayed with Dick Clark in this beautiful place, including Elvis. Elvis and Dick apparently were really good friends. And I'm going to show you a picture. There's this great, a gift that Elvis sent to Dick Clark that was still there was that Elvis sent him a toilet that was a throne. There was an actual, you go to the washroom and there's a throne, an actual throne from the king. And so it was fun. And so Malcolm and I were there. My manager Dave was with us. Bob Bennett, who lives down there, came and joined us for a couple of days. Greg Leith, a friend, and his son Carson, I think it was Carson, that came as well. And we kind of hung out, wrote songs. These next two, or this next one, comes from that time. Malcolm said, let's write a Lent song. And I said, sure. What would we write about? And he picked up his guitar and started playing a lonesome country beat, and this song emerged a few hours later. But we have Malcolm online, and I thought I'd ask him to tell you about it rather than me. Malcolm, how are you doing?
I'm okay. I'm delighted to see you again, and it's wonderful that we can keep making our music and doing our poetry in spite of all this stuff.
In spite of all, yeah. Hey, well, listen, I'm in the middle of an online concert, and I'm about to sing a song you and I worked together on, "Big Mistake." And then,
I remember that. Yeah.
And then it's companion song, "Lenten Lands." So I thought since the lyric for both of these is like 90%, 99% you, that you'd make a better introduction than I would. So could you just, I've already told the people who you are. I've already told them that we wrote these songs, or at least this first one, in Dick Clark's place.
Yeah, that was the thing in itself, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. I showed them the picture of the throne. And
okay, great. Yeah. I'm just going to see it. Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about the Big Mistake?
Yeah, let me tell you. So we had this thing going that really, that whole album, Pilgrimage, was about the journey we make. And obviously the archetypal pilgrimage in a way is the journey of Israel out of slavery in Egypt to freedom in the promised land. And later prophets like Hosea actually already begin to cast that as a kind of romance, like a kind of sweet elopement, that God really loves Israel and calls Israel like his bride, but she's shackled to this dodgy other guy called Pharaoh, and so we began to think about that, I think, together, about how you could tell this story of how the kind of crazy lovers run away, but then she has second thoughts, because, of course, the thing is, there's all that stuff that they were looking back at the flesh pots of Egypt. We were more secure there. And then when Moses goes up the mountain, they make the golden calf. And God is constantly trying to say to Israel, I want you to love me for me, because I love you for you. Not a big thunder on the mountain, not some gold image, let's get heart to heart. And, like happens in a lot of other love affairs, people say, no, I want this thing for security. I want, instead of just daring to be with you all the time. So I think we reimagined that whole story, and we voiced that song, "A Big Mistake," for Israel in the middle of her kind of second thoughts. And, oh God, I've run off with this God into the desert. Like, what is this? I know I was a slave in Egypt, but we had like regular hot meals. And maybe and it's, does she dare to have the freedom? And I think that's a real thing for all of us. I mean, the call to being a Christian is a call to radical freedom. And frankly, a lot of people prefer the slavery of sin.
Yeah.
Because it's a regular job. Right. Even if the wages of sin is death, it's still paid on time,
Yeah. And, it's familiar. It's familiar.
Yeah.
No. Yeah.
So that was really where all that came from. And I took the various episodes in that story, the golden calf, the pillar of fire by day, the pillar of fire by night, the thing where they made the brazen serpent, and the serpents that stung them. And I took them, and I really thought at the heart of it is this feeling, maybe the reason why we reject God's fantastic and unconditional love is that we don't think we're worthy. And God has to keep persuading us that really we are. We're worthy because he gives us our worth. And that's all there in that song, I think.
Well, I'll sing it and hang around, though, because I'll ask you to set up the next song as well, which goes with this one. Okay, here it is, "A Big Mistake." It was the night that brought me freedom, on the night you came for me. In the darkness you had kindled my desire, and your light pierced me through, and it drew me to you, and I mistook you for a pillar made of fire. When we started in the morning, I was ready for the day. I loved you and I sang for you out loud. But as time passed, I learned how the desert sands burned and I mistook you for the pillar made of cloud. And you mistook me for the faithful, you mistook me for the true, and you mistook me for the lover who would give her best to you. But you hurt me with your freedom, and it's a burden I can't bear, and it's all been a big mistake. Then we came back to the mountain where our love had burned before. I remember how it felt like holy ground when you drew me to the heights with your darkness and your lights, and I mistook you for the thunder all around. And when my springs had turned all bitter, then your love made them sweet. You were like a hidden river in the grass. But I sought my own will, and it poisons me still. I mistook you for a serpent made of brass. And you mistook me for the worthy, you mistook me for the free, and you mistook me for the lover that you wanted me to be. But I'm leaving your fold on a calf made of gold, 'cause it's all been a big mistake. Yes, it's all been a big mistake. Yes, it's all been a big mistake. Okay, lovely. Okay, Malcolm. So that was, I've often talked about this second song relating to the first song. Like when you go to see it to a museum, and sometimes you see a 2 or 3 panel painting. So
Yeah.
a diptych or a triptych.
Yeah.
And they're separate paintings, but they belong together. And so this is a musical diptych, which sounds ridiculous, but it's kind of got that vibe to it. Can you tell us a little bit about what's behind Lenten Lands?
So if a big mistake was voiced for Israel as understood and figured, as it were, as the bride in the elopement, then Lenten Lands is voiced for God, and really, in my view, for Christ, even though it's Yahweh who calls Israel out of Egypt, and they do this elopement into the desert. I mean, Yahweh comes down. Yahweh speaks to Moses from the burning bush and says, I will come down. And he does come down. And he, the I am, Yahweh, that's what that means, becomes Jesus, who says, you know, or Abraham was, I am. So for me, the groom to this bride must always be the supreme groom, you know, Jesus himself. So I imagine this as a Jesus's love song, frankly, not this time to Israel, but really to the church.
Okay.
And to us as individuals as well. But looking back on the Egypt story as a type of that. So I brought her out of Egypt in her youth. She clung to me when we were on the run. She tires of freedom now. She tires of truth. She seeks for something new under the sun. That sort of faithlessness. And the phrase that repeats in the chorus, the time of year has come when all things turn. I have to say, I lifted unashamedly from a sermon that was preached to King James in 1619. Figured, you know,
only you would know that.
He's a great hero of mine. Okay. So it's about turn with all your heart, turn unto me with all your heart. And he says, you know, in this sermon, it seemed good to the Holy Ghost and to the church to order that there shall be a solemn and set return once a year. It's a sermon about Lent. and reason. For once a year all things turn, and that once is now at this time. For now is the time of the turning of the year. In heaven the sun in his equinoctial line turns, the earth and all her plants after a dead winter return. And he evokes in this sermon this beautiful sense of the turn of the year in the spring, and says, come on guys, you can turn too. Mm-hmm. And I put one more turn onto that sermon of Andrew's, with the idea of Christ longing for us to turn to him, because he's already turned to us. Will she turn? Will she turn? And then, of course, he can't move away from us. Mm-hmm. He's utterly exposed. He's nailed to the cross. So I hold my arms out wide upon the tree. And then the final turn is back to that name, Yahweh, I am, where Jesus says to the beloved, to you and to me, all I am is turned towards her now. And that's not all that Jesus is, but the whole of Yahweh, the great I am, turns to us and says, will you turn to me?
Beautiful. So this is Lenten Lands.
Yeah, this is Lenten Lands. And that's why, because the sermon was about Lent. So that's how Lenten Lands came out. Yeah.
Oh, just one little brief thing too, and this is what I got from you. Lent, actually, the word Lent means greening, means spring.
Green. Yeah, it's from, goes back to the same word as lengthening. The days are lengthening.
So there's that whole earth turning coming out of the fruit.
Oh yeah, it is. Yeah, and that's very much in Andrew's sermon.
Coming out of the lockdown.
So the time when all things turn is a bit of 17th century prose that just happened to suit your voice.
Beautiful. Okay, here's the song. My love has gone away in Lenten lands, gone far away and clean forsaken me. And will she perish in those desert sands, or will she turn again and come to me? I brought her out of Egypt in her youth. She clung to me when we were on the run. She tires of freedom now, she tires of truth, and seeks for something new under the sun. The time of year has come when all things turn. The sun returns to warm the wintry earth. The land revives the plants, and seedlings yearn towards their rich beginnings and their birth. And will she turn, or will she turn again? I hold my arms out wide upon the tree. And will she see me yearn to her through pain, or will she turn again and come to me? The time of year has come when all things turn. The sun returns to warm the wintry earth. The land revives the plants, and seedlings yearn towards their rich beginnings and their birth. The grapes are swelling on the fruitful vine. The figs are ripe and low upon the bough. I break the bread for her and pour the wine, and all I am is turned towards her now. The grapes are swelling on the fruitful vine. The figs are ripe and low upon the bough. I break the bread for her and pour the wine, and all I am is turned towards her now. Well, thanks for joining me again on this anniversary of my last live concert. So I appreciate you coming and I don't want to say celebrating this with me, but marking it anyway. And hopefully we'll get back to the live work as soon as possible. But until then, we have these things, this technology that allows us to still be together in one way or another. So very grateful. Thank you to Malcolm for joining us. I'm going to have him come back in just a minute and talk to you about a new book before you go. Listen, next month we're putting out on my online channel. Some of you have seen my feature-length concerts we've been doing. I did one for my 60th birthday in the fall. You can still go see that. I did one at Christmas. I did one for Valentine's Day. Next month on that channel, we're putting up a feature-length concert of Malcolm and I. Several years ago, when I brought him to Winnipeg for the first time, we did a concert at the West End Cultural Center. And so that concert we're putting up online, and you can go there next month. Just, pay attention to my links or go to my website, subscribe to my newsletter, and you'll get that information. What else am I doing? I just did a 2-hour interview with Amber Anderson. She came in here and we did quite a long conversation about my new album, and we're putting out 2 1-hour podcasts very soon where we go through the album song by song. We talk about it, then we listen to it. So you'll be able to listen to that or watch it on video if you would prefer to do that. So watch for news for that. That'll come up in the next week or two. I might have a Juno next time I see you for the next album, or for the next concert. So we'll see. Thank you so very much. Jay, is there anything else I'm supposed to mention?
I think that's it.
We're pretty good. Before we go, and I'm gonna let you go out on this. Malcolm Guite has a brand new book out. It's a book called David's Crown. He has written this entire book of poetry since COVID, and so it is 150 poems corresponding to the 150 Psalms in the Hebrew Bible. It's quite an astonishing piece of work. So he's going to talk about it, and you can get it online at Amazon.com. It's well worth your time. It's a beautiful work. I'll leave you with this. God bless you. Thank you so very much. Malcolm, thanks for joining us. I really appreciate it. I'm glad we can do this. Before we go, I know you've got a brand new book of poetry out, and I know that the folks that kind of follow me are big fans of yours and are going to want to know about it. So just give us a little taste of your book.
Yeah, sure. Well, it's called David's Crown. I got it here. It's my response to reading and praying through the Book of Psalms in lockdown, basically.
Okay.
It's almost like a lockdown spiritual journey. And I read through each of the Psalms, and then I made a poem of prayer in response to it about how that Psalm comes to us now. And it happens, of course, the Psalms quite often look back at Israel's history and interpret it in fresh ways. And Psalm 106, I thought this might be appropriate, is the one that does what we just did in those 2 songs,
Mm-hmm.
Big Mistake and Lenten Lands, looking at that archetypal journey
Mm-hmm.
out of Egypt, out of the slavery of sin, through the wilderness, which is this life, towards the promised land. Can we hang on in there and stay true? And when I read that psalm, in which it kept on talking in the psalm about Israel's backslidings,
Mm-hmm.
but how in spite of them all, God just hangs on in there and holds you.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, boy, is that the story of my life,
Yeah.
So this poem, which is my response to Psalm 106, which starts, I gave them all the titles they have in the prayer book, which are Latin titles, Confitemini Domino, which is also a great Teze song, Confitemini Domino.
Okay.
But anyway, so here's the poem.
Okay.
I'm cleansed and kindled by his spirit's breath, but I'm no sooner cleansed than I defile myself again and turn from life to death. My kindling's all as cold as ash. This tale of Israel's backslidings speaks to me, for I too was delivered and, like Israel, strayed in the wilderness. I turn and see the shards of all my golden calves, my old attempts to turn the holy mystery into a thing of my own making, gold and glittering, but lifeless in the end. Yet I take comfort from this psalm. The old tales help me as I see my God extend his patience and still keep his covenant. My judge is still my savior and my friend.
Oh, fantastic. The book is called David's Crown.
David's Crown.
And it's available on Amazon. And it's 150 poems that correspond to the 150 Psalms.
Yeah.
All written since COVID, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's quite a burst of activity, my friend.
Busy, yeah.
You probably should have thought that one through. But anyways, I've read it all. It's brilliant. Thanks, man.
Okay, thanks. Great to see you, man. It's been really good.
You too.